I don't know about you. Some people, when you play music in the shir, it's like very uncomfortable. It's like a moment of silence where like it gets very awkward. For me, it's very geschmack when there's nice music. That's why we came here, to hear some good music. So I want to play a little bit more music tonight than I did last time. Even though last time we played some, I'll keep the clips a little bit short. But I still want to, again, especially if we're going to talk about the health benefits of music. So I definitely want to play some clips. So since we are going to talk about the power of music and the health benefits of music, I figured we would start with a clip. I figured I would pick a quick Eitan Katz one this time. Well, just again, this was from the Live in Jerusalem CD. If you didn't buy it since last week, you can still go get it in the store. He actually just came out with a new CD this week, but you don't have to buy it. I'm just if you like music. Yeah, I know. I should bring it here. Yeah, but we're just going to start with 2 minutes of the music to get us in the mood, and then we can start. If you want to dance, then the mechitza is over there. We'll just put it up and. Might be, I think we had a Torontonian in the picture, no? I think that's Ariel Shield, no? Okay, good. Okay, we got some live Torontonians in the picture. So that's Eitan Katz, getting us in the mood for some more Jewish music. So let's start. I want to speak a little bit differently. For those that were here last time, we spoke about the liturgical piece of Jewish music. And tonight I want to speak a little bit about the health benefits. Part of the shir is based on a shir that I saw on Ner LaElef, and another sefer that I saw, which is called Ashira V'Azamra L'Hashem. I think I mentioned it last week, which I got from A.B. Rodenberg. It's about this big, and it always blows my mind that there is somebody out there who can write a sefer this big on music, literally 500 and something pages with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mari Makomos. And it's something that, again, I turned to somebody and I said, Halavai, I should be able to write a sefer even a quarter of the size and know as much. So it's a big schus. I don't have the name of the sefer or the author, but it's really amazing that there are some people who really know such a tremendous amount of Torah. So in order to start tonight, I think we all feel that there's a certain power of music. I think you can feel it and you can see it in the video that we just played. But I want to back up a little bit. And again, as I mentioned last time, this is a shir. It's a lecture, but it's really a shir. So we're going to concentrate more on the Jewish sources, even though there are plenty of secular sources, which we'll get to at the end. But we could have spent months and months, and there's courses in colleges and universities on music and etc. But we're going to talk about more from a Jewish perspective, but there's plenty of, again, secular information as well. And I did last time, I gave you the source sheet in Hebrew, but again, everything we read will be in English as well. So you do not have to follow along if you don't want to. I just find it less distracting when there's no English on the page. So the power of music. How does Judaism view music? What value does Judaism see in music? And it's very clear that Judaism sees music not just as something that makes us happy, not just as something fun. It views music as a chachma. It views music as a high form of wisdom. You see in Bereshis, in the first source, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to number them, in Bereshis, Perek Dalid, Pasuk 21, V'shem achiv Yuval hu haya avi kol tafos kinor ve'ugav. So Yavel's brother's name was Yuval. He was the ancestor of all who play the harp and flute. If you play the harp or flute, Yuval is your ancestor. The Radak says, what does that mean? He was your ancestor. Hu haya harishon bechachmas hanigun. He was the originator of the art of music. That was Yuval. And Ibn Ezra says, Kinor ve'ugav, the harp and the flute. What are those? Mine kli niginot. They represent all musical instruments. Vehi chachma gedolah. It is a great wisdom. So you see from the Radak, you see from the Ibn Ezra that music and musical instruments and the art of music and the wisdom of music, so it's not just music is music, music is a great wisdom, and music is a great form of art. That's what music is in Yiddishkeit. The Ramban, Nachmanides, this is the Ibn Ezra and the Radak. The Ibn Ezra passed away in 1167, and the Radak passed away in approximately 1235. So we're talking about the 1200s. The Ramban also lived at that time in the 1200s. And the Ramban in Shar HaGemul says, similarly, in Yan HaKinor Ukli HaZemer, the idea of the harp and the other musical instruments, Bamigdash, as we discussed, again, some of this we will have discussed last week in the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, Remez Lahasagat HaMachshava Shehid Not Lit Beruach. It hints at the intellectual discernment seated in the soul. Ve'ein begashmi uzdak kimuzika. Anyone want to guess what the last word means? There is nothing in the physical world that is more subtle and more refined than music. So music is an art, music is a wisdom, and the Ramban says, again, this is a very important idea, the Ramban says that there is nothing in the world, in the physical world as we know it, that is more subtle and is more refined than music. The most subtle and the most refined thing in this entire world as we know it is music. Let me ask you a question. What is the most subtle part of the human body? What's the most refined part of the human body, of the human being? What's the most refined part of the human being?
The mind.
One can say the mind, one can say the brain. I think that at the end of the day we would say that they're all summed up in the soul. The most refined part of the human body, we have a guf and a neshama, we have a body, a physical body and a soul. The most refined part of the human being, I believe, is the soul. So let's make the comparison here, or let's make the logical deduction here, or conclusion here. If the music is the most refined physical thing that exists in this world, and our souls are the most refined part of our being, then I understand the saying that music is the language of the soul. Right? There's a connection between music and the soul. If music is the most refined item in the entire physical world, and our souls are the most refined part of our bodies, then if you're going to ask me what language speaks to the soul, so I'll tell you that music speaks to the soul. That's the common understanding, or I think that's the logical deduction of this Ramban. You have the physical world, the most subtle thing is music. You have the human body, the most subtle thing in the human body, and the most refined part of the human body is the soul, and therefore there's a connection between music and the soul, and music is the language, the expression of the soul, and it's really what speaks to the soul. So let's explore this idea a little bit about language being or music being the language of the soul. So the Mavar Yabok, who passed away in 1639, the Mavar Yabok says as follows: Hanishama nehanet mehanigun. Some of this stuff is just mind-boggling. Hanishama nehanet mehanigun. The human soul takes pleasure in nigun, in song, and in music. Lefi shehi regila binigunim b'shir shamalachei hasharet. Because before coming to earth, it's used to hearing the songs of the ministering angels in heaven. V'shir ha-gilgalim. Uviyoso baguf. So you have the soul which is up in heaven, and what's it listening to up in heaven? It's listening to, as we say in davening, that the malachim, we know that the angels, we don't only praise God down here, the angels praise God as well. The angels sing shira to God as well. So much so that it says that the angels need to wait for us to praise God and for us to sing shira in order for them to sing shira. I saw while I was preparing this shir that's one of the reasons. It says, I don't remember exactly where, maybe in the Gemara, that the Malachim were upset that the Jewish people don't say Shira on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the obvious question is, who cares? What does that have to do? Why does it bother you that we don't say Shira on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? We can't say Shira because, again, it's the Yamim Noraim, it's the Yamei Hadin. But why are the Malachim, why do they care whether we say Shira or not, whether we call out to God in song? Because the Malachim can't say Shira until we say Shira. And if we're not going to say Shira on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, then the Malachim can't say Shira on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur either. But let's say the rest of the year the malachim are up in Shamayim and they're saying Shira in heaven. So the soul of every human being before and after death is up in heaven, and it's listening to the Shira, it's listening to the music of the malachim. So says the Ma'avar Yabok, that's why the soul takes pleasure in music. Because when it comes to this world, it's used to the music of the ministering angels in heaven. And that's why Vishomat Nigun Nehanate Kemoshahaita Regila Biota Devuka Biyasoda. Therefore, even when it's in a physical body, when it hears music, it takes pleasure like it did on a regular basis when it was attached to its source, when it was attached to God. Umerov ha'arevut re'uya lishrot aleha ruach elokim kefi hanagasa v'yesod ha'rishon. From its enjoyment of music, it becomes capable of having the spirit of the Shekhinah rest upon it just as when it resided in heaven. It's a fascinating idea. When the soul was in heaven, it was close to God, and there was music that was playing, and keeping it happy, and keeping it close to God, and keeping the Shekhinah involved with it, having the spirit rest upon it. And when it comes to this world, it's sort of separated from that. The music comes and it feels like it's home again. It feels like it's back up in Shamayim. And obviously, as we'll discuss, it brings a certain connection. It's not just that it feels good, it brings a certain connection. Since music brings a certain connection to God, the soul can once again feel at home when it hears music in this world. So when we hear music, our souls feel like they're literally back at home. They're back in heaven. For Shlomo Alkabetz, the author of one of the most famous Jewish songs, the Lecha Dodi, which we sing on Friday night, says something amazing along these lines in his commentary to Megillat Esther. He says, "Ulemasha hayu hanigun vehamuzika davar yerav lanefesh." The same idea. The reason that the human soul enjoys music is because it regularly heard the music while it was in heaven. L'sibas hayosa morgeles b'shama zeh beyosa b'marom kinoda lefi shelo yachish pishutan shel mikros, etc., etc. Fine. He says that's the meaning of the biblical verses which describe how the angels open their mouths in blessing and praise and glorification. V'yesh anashim, listen to this. V'yesh anashim ye'erav aleihem kol kach ad asher yitbatlu chushehem lebal yedu efohem. Music can cause people to become so lost within themselves as if they have left their bodies. V'yesh me'em tikvot aleihem shena. They fall asleep. It's so soothing. It puts them to sleep. They lose track of where they are. Why? It's not just because you're falling asleep. It's not just because you're tired. It's because your nefesh is literally leaving your body when music is playing. Lishmoa el harina achetanuach haguf kefeger meit kiroa hi oso v'kishetipared mehashkiach bo yia kole haya v'yashen v'yardem. The soul simply leaves the body it was guarding, and the body becomes like a corpse. It becomes fast asleep. That's the power of music. He takes it to the next level. It's not just that the soul connects with the music because it feels like it's home again. The soul literally wants to go back up to heaven in a certain sense when it hears the music. It has this natural tendency to want to go to the source of the music, to go up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that when we fall asleep at night, in general, we talk about it being 1/60th of death. So here it's saying that it's not just falling asleep, it's falling asleep to music that really has that certain connection. And listen to this. Kimo biktanim yonke shadim kilo yeshnu kilo yishanu imlo yishmu es kol arena. So some infants can't sleep unless they hear a lullaby. I thought this was fascinating. Ukeshomam yanichu amishkevosam vareva Shnasam liosilsul hakol v'anoam adayin nikberet b'nafsham lemiut zman hafreida mimenu. You know why? Because they just left heaven recently. Wow. And the souls of the infants, of the babies, need the music. Because their soul was just up in Shamayim listening to music. Close to God and listening to music. V'chein yikra lecholim, and that happens sometimes with an ill person. Ki behechle shakochos, he's sapped of his physical strength. Hachomriim yinasu hanafshim lumasa. He's spiritually boosted through music. And this idea again of both the Ramban of the Ma'avar Yabok and Rav Shlomo Alkabetz is that there's something deeper here than just listening to music. It's that the soul has a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Shamayim. The soul connects and listens to the music of the Malachei Hashares up in heaven. And And when we come to this world, the soul still wants that. That's why it gets a little bit complicated when you start listening to like Guns N' Roses, because it's not necessarily the type of music that the soul is looking for. But not for tonight, and nothing against Guns N' Roses. So that's the understanding. There are certain songs in life, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there are certain songs, at least for me, again, I'm assuming you all like Jewish music, there are certain songs that just sort of, I understand what they're talking about here and the soul connecting to God when I play certain songs. Again, some of the new stuff, a little bit of the new stuff, so you can still get a little bit of a geschmack, you can feel a connection to God, but some of the older stuff you really feel. So I want to play with you one part of just one other song. You may, I'm sure you've heard it before, but this is one of my favorites, and this is one that really connects me to God. Shir last week about repeating words, but okay, that's another time. This is a Karbach Niggin. It's being sung by Yehuda Green, who's the chazan in the Karbach Shul in New York now. Hear the high part, and then we'll, because I can't hit this. Okay, and if you want the links of any of these songs after the shir, I'm happy to email them to you. So that's just an example, again, for me, of where sometimes you listen to music, and if you're in a quiet room and you're listening with headphones to a song like this, for me personally, it just sort of feels like your soul is reconnecting. So now I want to speak a little bit about the topic of the shir, which is the title of the shir, the health benefits of music. And I wrote Jewish music because it's not necessarily just Jewish music, even though obviously if we're going to speak about this idea of the souls feeling back at home and home sweet home, so there's clearly going to be more of a connection with the souls when we're dealing with Jewish music than when we're dealing with non-Jewish music. So now that we begin to speak about the health benefits of music in general and Jewish music in particular, so first let's start with the physical health benefits of music. What part of our body controls our emotions? So again, like we want to say before, our heart, Our soul, seemingly, we would say, in a general sense, our soul. Our heart, our brain, but if you want to say more general, so our soul controls our emotions. And therefore, again, if music is the language of the soul, and our soul controls our emotions, so we understand how music can control our emotions. If music can control our soul, quote unquote, it's the language of the soul, and the soul controls our emotions, then music can control our emotions. And everyone agrees, no matter what scientific research you see or you read, everyone agrees that there are many aspects and important parts to have a physically healthy life, but the emotion of happiness is definitely one of the keys. And the Sefer HaChinuch says this in a very clear and fascinating way. The Sefer HaChinuch was written for his son, for his bar mitzvah. He wrote the Sefer HaChinuch. The Minchas Chinuch is the parish on the Sefer HaChinuch. And the Sefer HaChinuch was written to explain to his son the reasons or possible reasons behind some of the mitzvos. Now, we don't know the reasons of any of the mitzvos. Some of them God tells us. A lot of them he doesn't. Some of them are chukim that we just have no idea what the reasons are. But even the ones that aren't necessarily a chok, we don't necessarily know what the reasons are. Sefer HaChinuch suggests here are some possible reasons. Why would he do that for a 13-year-old child? Because a 13-year-old child might not appreciate doing the mitzvahs unless he understands, why am I doing this? Why am I putting on tefillin? Why am I wearing tzitzis? Why am I davening every day? Why am I saying birkas hamazon? Why am I doing any things that I'm doing? So he tried to explain possible reasons to his son and to his friend so that the practice of mitzvahs at their bar mitzvah would be more meaningful. The Sefer HaChinuch says something very fascinating. Sefer HaChinuch says that there's a mitzvah to be happy on the Shalosh Regalim. What's the reason for the mitzvah to be happy on the Shalosh Regalim? Well, it's a pasuk that says, V'samachta b'chagecha. How does one accomplish this mitzvah? How does one fulfill this mitzvah of being happy? Well, it depends if you're a man or a woman. If you're a man, what do? You eat meat and you drink wine. What do you do if you're a woman? You buy new clothing. What do you do if you're a kid? You get candy. That's the story. Every day in the BAYT on Shabbos, every Shabbos is the Shalosh Regalim for the kids. Plenty of candy, no problem. But he says over here, Achilas basar ushtias yayin is for men. A woman can eat meat and drink wine also, but that's going to make the men happy. New clothing is going to make the woman happy. And peiros, or candy, are going to make the ne'arim happy. And we also have a chiyuv to go ahead and make sure that the aniyim and the geirim are happy as well. Now, listen to what he says over here in the second paragraph. And hold on to your chair. Misharshe ha-mitzvah, the root of the mitzvah of simcha on the regalim, lefi sheha-adam nachon al inyan shetzarech tivo lismoach leprakim. The human being is made that he needs to be happy, kimoshe hu tzarech al hamazon al kolpanim v'al habenucha v'al hashena. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to drink, you need to be happy. Being happy is one of the key ingredients. You can't live without eating, you can't live without drinking, you can't live without sleeping, you can't live life without being happy. So why is there a commandment to be happy on the Shalosh Regalim? Because God loves us. V'ratza hakel lezakoseinu anachnu amo v'tzom ariso v'tzivanu lasos hasimcha l'shmo leman niske lefana b'chol maseinu. We need to be happy anyway. It's part of the human being that needs happiness. So what does God do? Well, there are certain times in history, the Shalosh Regalim specifically, where he was more found in this world, where he was more glorified in this world, where he did nisim that we're commemorating in this world. So what does he say to us? You need to be happy anyway. So let me give you the mediums to be happy, and you know what? I'll give you a reward for being happy in the process. So I'll command you to be happy on the Shalosh Regalim. I'll tell you how to be happy by eating meat, by drinking wine, by doing things you enjoy doing, by getting new clothing, by getting candy, and I'll specifically command you to do it so that when you do it, which is something that you need anyway, you're going to get rewarded for it in this world and in the next world. Right? Whenever you ask somebody, like, what's the easiest mitzvah? So it's probably eating cholent. For some people, for other people not. But eating cholent. The hardest mitzvah is after the cholent. But the easiest mitzvah is the cholent. So why is it so easy? Because you're going to eat anyway. So God says, you need to be happy. That's the way that I made up the human being. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to command you that you should be happy specifically on the Shalosh Regalim, when you're commemorating Yetzias Mitzrayim, when you're commemorating Matan Torah, etc., which are really the times that we should be happy anyway. I'm going to tell you how to become happy by buying things, by going to shul, of course, by spiritual Chatzi Lachem, Chatzi Lashem, half for you, half for God. But at the end of the day, I'm going to reward you as well because I love you, so I'm going to give you something that you need. I'm going to command you to eat. I'm going to command you to have a good time. You're going to do the command. You're going to get rewarded for it. And in the process, you're going to keep yourself healthy. You're going to keep yourself doing what a human being needs to do. But what we see from the Sefer HaChinuch here is that we need to be happy. Not everybody's always happy, of course. It's very hard to always be happy, and it's not saying we have to be happy all the time. But the human being has a need to be happy. And just like the human being has a need to eat, and a need to drink, and a need to sleep, the human being doesn't just have a desire, it has a need to be happy. And music, maybe more than anything else in the world, has the ability and the power to make us happy. And again, each one of us knows this, that music has the ability to make us happy from experience. But it's always good to see these ideas from Tanakh, from the Bible as well. We see this idea in Shmuel, the fact that music has the power to make us happy. There's a story told in Shmuel that King Shaul, V'ruach Hashem Sara Me'im Shaul, that the spirit of Hashem departed from Shaul, Uviyataso Ruach Ra Me'et Hashem, and an evil spirit, sadness from Hashem, frightened Shaul. And Shaul's servant said to him, well, now you're all upset. Our master, I'm reading in English, allow your servants to say before you that we want to seek a man who knows how to play the harp. And it will be that when you're sad, there will be somebody who will play the harp and it will be good for you. Vayomer Shaul in the second paragraph, Re'una li ish meiti l'nagin v'aviyosem elai, bring me this man who knows how to play the harp. And one of the young men answered and said, well, there's a son of Yishai from Beit Lechem who knows how to play. He's a mighty man, he's a warrior, he's a handsome man. God is with him. So Shaul sends messengers to Yishai and he sends, please, send me David, your son, Asher Batzon, who's with the tzon, right? When they came to anoint, they were looking and they had all the brothers and then they said, no, none of you. And then they went to go get David from the field. Vayikach Yishai chamor, etc., etc. Vayavei David el Shaul vayamol lifanav, and he played the harp for him. Vayavehu me'od, and he loved him very much. Vayihilo nase kelim, and he was the one who was his weapon bearer. Vayishlach Shaul in the third paragraph, El Yishai lemor Yamo na David lifanai ki matza chen beinai. I like David very much, and I like his music. V'haya biyos ruach Elohim el Shaul v'lakach David esa kinor v'nagein biyado v'ruach lishol v'tovlo v'sara me'elav ruach hara. Whenever he had this bad spirit, this evil spirit, this sadness upon him, whenever Shaul had that, David HaMelech would go and he would play the harp, and the evil spirit, the sadness, would disappear. The Rambam, Maimonides, understands this story of Shaul and David, of not just being a story, but to be general advice. The Rambam says on the second page, V'chein misha his ora alav mara shchora. What's mara shchora? Depression. Somebody who's depressed, yasira b'shmiras hanigunim b'minei zemer. Someone who's overtaken by depression can get rid of the depression by listening to songs with various types of music. Now, it's obviously not so pashut. Doesn't mean that somebody that has depression doesn't have to take pills, and it doesn't mean that it's always curable. But if you're going to ask what's one type of way, what's one way out of the depression, we see from the story of Shaul and David that music has this ability to go ahead and to get rid of the depression. That's where we clearly see in Jewish literature the connection between music and making us happy, as the Sefer Chinuch says, something that we need for our souls and for our bodies. There's another place in Jewish tradition that we see a clear connection between happiness, being happy, and music. Where is that? So the Mishnah in Sukkah, which I mentioned quickly last week, the Mishnah in Sukkah says, Kol misha lo ra simchas beis hashoeva, lo ra simcha miyamav. Anyone who did not witness the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the water-drawing ceremony on Sukkot, never experienced true joy. What did they do at the water-drawing ceremony on Sukkot? They drew water, okay? And they poured it on the Mizbeach. What else did they do? It was a time of ultimate joy, and the real joy of the ceremony was the singing and was the dancing all night long. They had lit torches, they had the accompaniment of music, which was played by the Levium, and all of the people went and they were singing and dancing the entire night. Now I looked on YouTube for a clip of Simchas Beis HaShoeva from the Beis HaMikdash, and nothing came up. So the best I could do was find the Simchas Beis HaShoeva from Toldos Aaron. Now, I will tell you that I'm not exactly sure how they got this, because when I was in Israel for the year, I could be wrong, it might not have been Toldos Aaron. It probably wasn't Toldos Aaron. I don't want to say anything about Toldos Aaron. So from an unnamed sect of Hasidim, where they did not believe in cameras. Now, they may again have changed now. This was a while ago, before the days of smartphones, but they didn't believe in cameras. And I think more importantly, they didn't believe in taking pictures of the Rebbe. And again, I don't know if they still have this with some of the Hasidim. There seem to be Rebbe pictures out and about. And to the point where if you took a camera and you tried taking a picture, they would actually take the camera away from you, or at least make you rip out the film. So I had a friend who took a picture at one of these things. He took a picture of the Rebbe at one of the Simchas Beis HaShoevas, and they came over to him and basically didn't give him much of a choice and told him, please give us, again, those are the days for those youngsters don't know what I'm talking about. There used to be something called film inside of a camera. Even I know what that is. There used to be something, there was something called a camera before the iPhone, where you used to have to like actually press a button and take pictures, and it didn't go into the cloud right away. Whatever, you can ask your parents or grandparents about it.
Wait to see what it developed.
What? You had to wait to see what it developed. It was a whole matzav. It was a time when you actually looked at your pictures. Today you take pictures, you never even look at them. At least then you develop them and you looked at them. So anyway, long story short, I went to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva and they took a picture, and we didn't have any proof that we were there. So I did find online a Simchas Beis HaShoeva and told us Aaron. And again, the reason that we do this on Sukkot is in commemoration of the singing and the dancing and the joy that they had in the Beis HaMikdash. And again, as we mentioned last week, this was the greatest joy in the Jewish calendar. Kol mi shelo ra Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Anybody who did not witness the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, lo simcha, lo ra simcha meyamav. You haven't seen joy, you haven't seen simcha until you've seen a Simchas Beis HaShoeva and the Beis HaMikdash. Obviously, it was accompanied by music. And it fits in perfectly with what we're saying. You want to have joy, you want to have happiness, which leads to health, you need to have music. So let's just play a 2.5-minute clip of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. If you've never been to a Simchas Beis HaShoeva in Mea Sharim, and you happen to be able to go for Sukkot, you can go. The women are there also. They're on the top. You just can't see them, but they are there. Okay, so there's the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Again, that's nothing compared to what used to be at the times of the Beis HaMikdash. The Vilna Gaon adds another aspect to the health benefits of music, and he says in Mishlei, first we'll read the pasuk from Mishlei, Ruach ish yichakel machaleyu, a man's spirit will sustain him in his sickness, V'ruach necheya mi yisa'ena. But who can support a broken spirit? Now again, this is obviously nothing we're saying here is foolproof. Doesn't mean that when somebody's sick, you just play the music and they get better. But the Gra says clearly on this pasuk in Mishlei, it's very small. I'm sorry I couldn't make it bigger. Ruach ish kemo shekasav lamala shasimcha ba al yedei haruach. Simcha comes from this ruach, from this spirit. V'zeh ruach ish kisha ish tamid besimcha hu yichakel machalei. It doesn't just make you happy, which is what you need to be physically healthy. It's not just that it makes you happy, which is what the human body needs. It's when you're besimcha, you get rid of sickness. You prevent sickness, mind over body. Simcha, happiness, can actually prevent sickness, and it can actually get rid of sickness. Av sheyava alav machala chas v'shalom hu yichakel machaleu besimchaso yivat lena. I actually was going to bring a story. I didn't write it down, but I remember. I read a story once. My wife told me, Leora told me a story once. I don't know where she saw it. It was about a doctor who went to volunteer in one of the third world countries, and he contracted one of the viruses or illnesses that they had there, unfortunately. And when he came back, he went to the doctors, and they said, "I'm sorry, you have no hope." he was a doctor, so he knew that doctors don't usually know what they're talking about. But I had to say that. I'm sorry, doctor. But he knew that doctors are not always right. Sometimes they're not right. And what? Some doctors are always right. Most doctors, nobody's always right. Rabbis are not always right either. And they told him that there's no hope. But he, again, being a doctor, he knew that maybe he should do a little bit more research. He did research, and he found out that there's a certain chemical. I forgot what it's called. There's a certain chemical that is produced by the body when one laughs, when one becomes happy, and when one laughs. And he actually hired, what's it called?
Serotonin.
Serotonin.
Yeah, they sell it.
Do they sell that in a bottle or no? They're not.
Pills.
They sell pills? Okay, good to know. Okay. So.
You laugh at the price.
What?
You laugh at the price.
You laugh at the price, right. So. He took. He didn't take these pills. He actually hired entertainment. He used to hire like a clown, a magician, a comedian, and he would laugh. And to the point where he did this for a few weeks, and he actually got better. That was a true story that was told. Again, after the Vilna Gaon saying, it doesn't always happen. You can't take, unfortunately, Rahman al-Islam. There are people who have serious illnesses and cancer, and it doesn't mean that if you start laughing and telling them jokes, that they're going to get better. But the Vilna Gaon is telling us something very deep, that a man's spirit can sustain him in sickness. That being happy can keep you healthy, and being happy can get you to be healthy when you're not healthy. Now again, there is a whole science, and again, we could have spent months and months. There's a whole science about mind over body, and we do believe that our mind does control, and we do believe that many sicknesses are brought upon by the mind and by our emotional state, etc. But this is one further, again, Jewish source to the idea that there is something to be said about joy, about happiness, and about music bringing joy and happiness, and the health of our bodies. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. So just to recap at this point, our soul controls our emotions. Music is the language of our soul, and thus music can really control our emotions. Music can thus bring happiness and joy, as we've seen both from the Tanakh and from our experience. And if it can bring happiness, which is one of the keys to a physically healthy life, and as the Gra takes it one step further, the Vilna Gaon, it can go ahead and it can prevent illness and get rid of illness as well. There are a few I want to discuss, while we have a few more minutes, there are a few spiritual health benefits to music as well. And this is something that we touched upon last week. And that's the fact that our purpose in this world is to build a relationship with God. It's to build a relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is the closest relationship that a human being can have with God? Anybody? What's the closest relationship that a human being can have with God? Think to the times of the Tanakh. What's the closest? What? Excellent. Prophecy. Nevuah. Let's go back to the water drawing ceremony on Sukkot. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says in the Talmud Yerushalmi, there was a Talmud Bavli that was done in Bavel, and then there was one that was done in Yerushalayim, in Eretz Yisrael. So he says, why is it called the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the water drawing? Yes, they drew water from the valley and they brought it and put it onto the Mizbeach. But why is it called? It's called something deeper than that. Because what did they draw? They were able to draw Shoavim Ruach HaKodesh. At this Simchas Beis HaShoeva, there was drawn divine inspiration. And he says that the prophets, Yonah, etc., went to Jerusalem for the festival. They attended the water drawing ceremony, and Sharsa Allah Ruach HaKodesh. People that went to the Beis HaMikdash, there was still prophecy at the time, people who would go to the Beis HaMikdash, they weren't just singing and dancing like in Toldos Aaron, they would sing and they would dance to the point where they would become so happy that they would actually have Ruach HaKodesh, they would actually have prophecy on the spot. And he teaches, L'lamdecha she'ein Ruach HaKodesh shora ela al lev sameach. The divine inspiration prophecy only rests on someone whose heart is happy. So it's not just that it's healthy to be happy. It's not just that music makes us happy and now we're going to be physically healthy, or we're going to be able to get rid of the illnesses and prevent the illnesses, and we'll be able to feed our body the happiness that it needs. Is that when we're happy through music specifically, but really through anything, but specifically through music, which is, I guess we could say again, the number one way to get happy. So when we're happy, we have the ability to connect to God in a way that we can't connect to God otherwise. And that's what I was saying before about a song like Memkomcha. It's not just that, oh, it feels good. And it connects to what we said in the beginning. It's not just that our soul is going up to Shamayim and connecting to God. It's that it's literally connecting with God. It's that the music is speaking to our soul. The music is making us happy even if we don't necessarily feel it outwardly. The music is making our souls happy. When it makes us happy, so we're able to have a certain connection with God that we can't have otherwise. So So it really builds upon what we said last week. Last week we were talking about how nigunim, how music can go ahead and in the service, it could really make us feel more connected to God. But it's not just that we sing and we become more connected to God. It's that we sing, and the singing affects our soul, and the singing actually affects the soul to the point that God's presence and the prophecy, quote unquote, can actually rest on us. Now again, prophecy, the ultimate connection to God, is not possible nowadays, but still, music can still help us and our heart and our mind attain a certain necessary level, which is as close as we can get to prophecy as we can. We see this idea, I don't want to go through all the sources, but we see this idea in Divrei Hayamim as well, with David and his generals, and they were able to have prophecy with the kinaros, the nevalim, and the mitzaltim, the harps, the lyres, and the cymbals. We see in Malachim that Elisha said that you should go get me a musician. And it says, Radak explains that when his mentor Eliyahu departed, so prophecy did not rest upon Elisha, the prophet Elisha, because he was in a state of mourning. And prophecy can only rest upon somebody who is in a state of happiness. And therefore, when he went ahead and he got a musician, he was able to raise himself back up to the state of happiness. This could be, I didn't think about it while I was preparing the shir, but this could be one of the reasons that we know that an Avel is not supposed to listen to music. An Avel during the year, definitely during the Shiva, during the 30 days, during the year, is not supposed to listen to music. Why not? Because music is an actual joy. Music is a happiness. And that's this idea that, again, from the point of view of getting close to God, you would think it would be okay. But again, there is that certain separation between God and the Avel during the Shiva, during the 30 days, during the year.
So it's the 3 weeks as well.
During the 3 weeks, we feel a separation from God. Sphira is a little bit harder to understand. Again, that's more of a D'Rabbanan, but Sphira would be the same idea. And when the temple was destroyed, we lost this level of prophecy, and we can't expect music to restore us to that level, but music is certainly a means to lift our mood up and to connect us with God. I just want to elaborate, and then we'll conclude with one other idea from the secular sources. But there are numerous Hasidic masters who elaborate this idea. They actually refer to a part of the body called the chamber of music, which is a spiritual chamber within the human body which enables a person to connect to God. It says that if you look at the Imre Kodesh in the bottom of the sheet, for whatever reason you just can't connect to God, you don't feel like you're connecting the way you'd like to be, what do? Az al yidei heichal hanigun, through the chamber of music, of song, efshar lo lekari vatzmo. It's possible to draw close to God. There's a fascinating interpretation which I included just on the top. There's a fascinating interpretation which tries to explain why, when you read Megillas Esther, so you'll notice that Achashverosh had everything you could possibly imagine at the party except for one thing. He had no music. Why did he not have any music playing? So he says over here, Shekavanaso shel Achashverosh b'mishta zeh haya lechahatiyam liYisrael. His goal was to get the Jewish people to sin. V'lachein lo hikbid kiyam kli ashtiya. Therefore, he wasn't makbid except on the klishtiya kadesh yichamdu v'yisavu lishtos miyayin nesech. He wanted them to go ahead and drink wine. She'avol is fine. Dizehu atam shelo hevi nigunim. This is why he didn't bring music to the party. Kedei shelo yabitu bahem v'yidnu sham daitam. Because what happens when Jews hear music? They get close to God by definition. Lefisha nigun ochez anefesh, like we started with. The nigun grabs our soul. It connects our soul. It gets our soul to start yearning to get close to God. His whole purpose of the party was to get the Jews away from God, to get the Jews to forget God. And he did a good job at it. If he would have had music, so the music would have drawn the Jews towards God, and at least some of them, if not many of them, if not all of them, would have not wanted to sin at the party. Very, very fascinating shot. And thus we've seen that there are physical benefits of music which make us happy, which again has a certain benefit that we need it. It makes us healthier people, etc., as we discussed. And we've seen the spiritual health benefits of music as well. I want to just speak for just a few minutes to conclude about some secular research that I came across during my preparation for this lecture. Again, I want to keep it more Torah-based. After all, it is the BAYT Medrash program, but I did want to mention some secular sources as well. There was an article that I saw, and I want to just play with one or two clips for you, and then we'll conclude. The first part of the article was about the bodily responses to music and the fact that it's been proven that music influences human beings in good ways, in bad ways. It can have an instant impact. It can have a long-lasting impact. Music has the ability to change a person's mood. It has the ability to strengthen our emotions. When we're happy, it has the ability to make us even happier. When we're sad, it has the ability to make us even sadder. As he gives an example, when you're at a funeral, if you've ever been to a funeral, there's music played at certain circumstances. I've actually been to some for like if somebody was in the army or in the navy or something, they actually played the trumpets and everything. And again, we don't necessarily do it, but it does bring a certain emotion that you don't have without the music. And obviously, different people also perceive and respond to music in different ways. Research has shown that slow classical music causes the heartbeat to beat slowly, the pulse rate to relax, and as the body becomes more relaxed and more alert, the mind is able to concentrate more easily as well. I personally, sometimes when I'm even learning, just have classical music playing in the background. They also say that classical music decreases blood pressure and enhances the ability to learn.
And
it also has
Mozart effect about the man.
So I have here the Mozart effect, which is the power of music to affect memory. And there's something about 60 beats per minute, a 60 beats per minute beat pattern, which activates both the left brain and the right brain, and when both brains are working at the same time, so it maximizes the learning and maximizes the retention of information. That was a study that I saw. There was actually very fascinating. There was a renowned Bulgarian psychologist, Dr. George Lozanov, who designed a way to teach his students a foreign language in a fraction of the time that it normally takes, because he was able to go ahead using music. He was able to teach them one half of the entire school term words in one sitting, I think. And the average retention rate, it says, was 92%. And again, it was based on using certain classical music pieces which had 60 beats per minute, which activated both parts of the brain. And they were able to recall almost 100% of the information and the knowledge and the words, even after 4 years. At the same time, we talk about the health benefits of music. We also find that slow music, while it can slow down the heartbeat and the breathing rate, the fast music that we alluded to in the beginning has the ability to speed up the same body measurements as well. And there was a Australian physician named Dr. John Diamond who said that there was a direct correlation in his research between strength and weakness of a body and music. And that when there's a certain beat, like rock, he gives examples, Led Zeppelin, I don't know. That one I know, the Queen, the Doors, I don't know, you can look at a thing. But he says that when there's certain hard rock musicians and you listen to their music, so he finds that muscles in the entire body tend to go weak. And the opposite, when you were listening to slow music, again, it got to the point where it was able to calm you down. He claims, there is somebody who's a former rock musician who remembers that in the 70s, I was not yet born, but remembers in the 70s that there were teens who would bring raw eggs to a rock concert, and if you put them on the front of the stage, then they would be hard-boiled by the end of the concert. I don't know if that's true, but again, that's what they claim. There was actually an interesting example from this. What?
Depends what else they brought to the
Right.
concert.
I don't know what else he brought to the concert. He didn't seem,
Tell us about it.
he didn't. I actually brought samples for after this year, so it's legal now in Canada, so no problem. One example of the power of music is a story told about King George I of England. They say that King George I of England had problems with memory loss and stress management. And supposedly he actually read this piece from Shmuel Aleph that we read before with the Shaul and David HaMelech. And he saw that Shaul had experienced similar types of problems. And he remembered and read that Shaul had overcome his problems with special music. And therefore he actually asked somebody named George Frederick Handel to write some special music for him, which would help him in the same way that the music helped David HaMelech. And he called this music the water music, which is something that I believe we have a copy of here. this supposedly was inspired by, this music was supposedly inspired by the story that we quoted before of David and King Shaul. Just to conclude, which might be the most fascinating thing, even though it's not 100% proven, but there are numerous tests and studies that have been done to see the effects of music on living organisms besides for human beings. And they show that there's certain types of music that actually aid the hens in laying more eggs. And there's actually music that can help cows yield more milk. And there are researchers that have found that wheat grows faster with certain musical sounds. Rats were reacting to Bach's music, and they had rats that were in two different boxes. One of them played classical music. One of them played other music, and they can go back and forth, and they always tended to go towards the classical music. I actually did find a interesting clip to just want to show you about this idea of the cows and about the ability to have the cows milk more.
How is the impact of classical music on the milk production? Questo progetto, ideato da Andrea Scherna e da me nell'ambito di Cremona Mondo Musica, è stato pensato per dimostrare e per affermare che la musica non è soltanto un importante elemento culturale della nostra identità, ma può essere molto di più e può avere degli effetti benefici anche in ambienti apparentemente molto lontani, come per esempio strong acting messages in anni.
They believe that by playing music to the cows, it really affected the way that they ate and the way that they gave out milk.
Io ovviamente ho inciso l'integrale, quindi mi piace portare questa musica anche in contesti inusuali, ma anche perché è un brano di una particolare dolcezza, tenerezza, ed è un brano che comunica benessere, che comunica uno star bene, che a mio parere potrebbe dare degli effetti interessanti anche sulla qualità del latte. Quindi mi aspetto un latte sicuramente dolce, un latte ricco, un latte felice. Questo esperimento di oggi.
So that's the cows. I tried this with one of my shiurim, but they all fell asleep. So I don't know if that was I don't know if that was just me. Finally, there was fascinating research in the 1960s, about the effects of music on plants, and the idea that different types of music affected the different types of plant growth, and depending on what type of music you played, so the plants grew well. And they said that the plants grew well and grew better with music than without music, except for certain types of rock and roll music. But when they played jazz, classical, etc., it was very helpful to the plants. And when they tested them with rock music, so they withered and died. And I want to show you just one more fascinating. This is real stuff. You can't actually make this up.
It's the unique vineyard of one man, his plants, and his music. Organic wine grower Jean-Marie Zer doesn't use fertilizers. He's convinced that what helps his grapes grow is a daily dose of the classics.
At first, everyone thought I was a little bit crazy. Some still do. But it's been my experience that the taste and aroma are better, and the sugar levels rise.
Jean-Marie seems in total harmony with his harvest. He even has music composed especially for his plants. His work raises a huge question. Can plants hear? Two German students hope to find out, with the help of the scientist's old friend, the tomato plant. The plants are placed in separate rooms and kept under exactly the same conditions, except one. One group gets its very own sound system. For 2 hours a day, they are blasted with classical music, whether they like it or not. Their neighbors are left in peace. Apart from the music, daily life for both sets of plants is exactly the same. The students measure the plants each day. 15 days later, it's time to test the results. The blue bars show the growth of the plants in the music room. The plants exposed to music are a little bit ahead of the others. The results are too close to prove anything, but it's an exciting step toward discovering if plants really do respond to sound.
So that was the YouTube on the plant. So I just want to again review what we spoke about tonight. We spoke about the power of music in general. We spoke about the fact that Judaism views music both as an art and as a wisdom. We mentioned the Ramban, that the most refined thing in this physical world is music, and the most refined part of the human body is our soul, and therefore it makes sense that there's a connection between music and the soul, and it makes sense that music, the most refined thing in this world, and the soul, the most refined part of the human being, it makes sense that music is the language of the soul. We spoke about the fact that the soul heard beautiful songs while it was up in heaven, and therefore when it hears beautiful songs here, it feels once again connected, and it feels like the Shekhinah, it feels like the divine presence is once again resting upon it. Rav Shlomo Alkovitz, the author of L'Chadodi, took it to the point where he said that when we listen to music, sometimes we literally feel like our soul has left our body. That's one of the reasons that we fall asleep. And he had that beautiful pshat about why that's why infants seem to love lullabies, because they had just gone and they were just in heaven listening to the music of the angels, and now when they come out to this world, so they want to hear that music once again. Then we spoke about the physical benefits of the soul. We spoke about the idea that the heart, the brain, really the soul is what controls our emotions. And if music is the language of the soul, then music really controls our emotions as well. We brought the beautiful Sefer Achinuch, which said that just like we need to eat and drink and sleep, we need to be happy as well. And we said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu specifically gave us the Shalosh Regalim, that we would get rewarded for doing something that we needed to do anyway. We see that personally in our lives, we see that music makes us happier, which again is healthier, but we see that in Tanakh as well, the story of Shaul and David. The Rambam gives us the advice that one who is depressed should try to listen to music. There's another place, again in Jewish tradition, where we see the connection between joy, happiness, and music, and that's at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which was the ultimate joy of the Jewish people on the calendar, and there was music involved with that as well. The Vilna Gaon added to us as well that even though it's not foolproof, the Vilna Gaon added that happiness keeps machla, keeps sickness away, and can also get rid of sickness. Those were the physical benefits of music. And we spoke about some spiritual benefits of music as well, where the closest we can get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world is prophecy. We saw that at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, that when they used to draw the water, it wasn't just the drawing of the water, it was really the drawing of the Shekhinah, the drawing of God's prophecy onto the people, and that was done through the singing and the dancing. We saw numerous times throughout Tanakh where David and his generals were able to get prophecy with music. We saw that the day that Eliyahu left Elisha, so he lost his prophecy, and when he came and he listened to music, he was able to get his prophecy back. We said that even though the temple is destroyed nowadays, the highest level that we can reach and the closest we can get to God is obviously through Torah, but through music as well. We quoted some Hasidic masters who mentioned the chamber of music, the fact that Achashverosh didn't bring music to the party because by definition he was trying to get the Jews to sin, so then they would not have necessarily sinned had they had music to connect them to God. And then we spoke about some of the secular perspectives on the bodily responses to music and the benefit of things like classical music, the harmful effects of things like rock, etc., the power to help us maintain our memory and our learning, the power that we saw that King George I of England felt that based on the Bible, he had music composed by George Frederick Handel, the water music. We spoke about the idea that you can hard-boil an egg if you put it next to rock music. And finally, we saw the possibility that not only does music affect human beings, but it has effects on animals as well. and it can even affect the growth of a plant. So thank you again for coming, and next week in the Turk-based Medrash,